Greetings to you all, and welcome to Back to Ashes. I am your host, Phoenix. For the important information for this channel, it can be found down below in the description. To the elite members of Back to Ashes, you have my deepest gratitude for your loyal support. Without further ado, it is time to sit back, relax, kick back, grab your snacks for tucking and get warm, and prepare for your dose of vocal melatonin entitled 4 True Strange National Park Disappearances. Right after this intro, there will be an ad. Right before the first case, there will be an ad. And after that, there will be no more ads within this video. Disclaimer, my heart goes out to all the friends and family members who are still searching for their loved ones to this day. The puzzling disappearance and death of Paul Miller in Joshua Tree National Park. Paul Miller disappeared July 13, 2018, Joshua Tree National Park, California. Remains located December 19, 2019. In July of 2018, Paul Miller, 51, and his wife Stephanie from Ontario, California, embarked on a vacation through California and Nevada with plans to celebrate their 26th wedding anniversary in Las Vegas. Their trips were typically adventures in the backwoods, filled with camping, hiking, and kayaking. They had journeyed across Canada, North America, and Mexico, fueled by their shared passion for the outdoors. Both Paul and Stephanie were seasoned hikers, fit and eager to explore new terrains. On July 13, 2018, under the relentless desert sun, Paul decided to take one last hike before their trip to Las Vegas. He set his sights on the 49 Palms Oasis Trail in Joshua Tree National Park, assuring Stephanie he would return by late morning. That was the last time Stephanie saw him. Hours turned into days. Paul had vanished without a trace. Search parties combed the area, but the vast, unforgiving terrain seemed to swallow every clue. Stephanie clung to hope, haunted by what had happened to Paul. Then, in late 2019, analysis of drone footage revealed a chilling discovery. Paul's remains, lying in a remote off-trail area of Joshua Tree. The drone had found what countless human searchers searching for hundreds of hours could not. Who was Paul Miller? Paul Miller had a degree in environmental services and worked for a small company making water filtration systems to bring water to different communities. He was described as being fun to be around, with lots of friends, outgoing but caring and compassionate by friends. The Miller's kids had left home and were about to enter the empty nest stage of their lives. Stephanie described their relationship as being best friends, and they were looking forward to the next stage of their lives. They were a solid couple and loved spending time together. Friends described Stephanie and Paul as having a great marriage, and they had just finished renovating a house they had bought 4 years before. Stephanie's permanent teaching job was confirmed in September of 2018, and Paul had a raise at work. With the children leaving home and their work news, this was an ideal trip to have their first vacation just as a couple to celebrate their 26th wedding anniversary. Paul was always on the go, never a couch potato, and loved getting out into nature, especially with his camera. He was in great shape and never had any medical conditions, with no family history of health problems. The Miller family holiday. Paul and Stephanie traveled by air from their home in Guelph, a city in southwestern Ontario, Canada, to Las Vegas, Nevada, on an unknown date in early 2018. On arrival in Las Vegas, they rented a car from Hertz. They headed towards 29 Palms in California, intending to spend their 26th wedding anniversary there and hike the Joshua Tree National Forest. They stayed at Motel 6, 72562 29 Palms Highway, around 8.5 miles from the Northern Park entrance. The Millers were getting ready to leave their hotel in Motel 6 in 29 Palms on July 13th of 2018, the last day of their trip, but Paul wanted to make one more short hike to take some pictures of some big, bighorn sheep. Paul promised Stephanie to be back later that morning. They had already hiked several trails in the park, including areas of Barker Dam and Black Rock. He left the hotel alone at around 9 a.m. and drove to the 49 Psalms Oasis Trail in Joshua Tree National Park, arriving at 9:20 to 9:30 a.m. via Canyon Road. Stephanie was going to accompany her husband on the morning hike, but with time constraints pressuring them on the morning of their last day, she decided to stay at the hotel and pack up their belongings. Checkout the hotel was at 11. It was actually noon. They had gone to have a leisurely breakfast at Denny's that morning. Stephanie was also a slower hiker than Paul, and they had both hiked in Joshua on July 12th, so reluctantly, he decided to go on the solo hike. The motel was very close to the trail, and Paul was sure he could do the hike and return within a couple of hours, as they had to be in Vegas to catch the flight back to Ontario. Paul wore dark shorts, dark gray, almost black high-tech Altitude 6 WP hiking boots, a black hat, sunglasses, a Camelback hydration pack, and a Nikon D5300 camera. He left his wallet and cell phone at the motel, which was not unusual for Paul when hiking. The 49 Psalms Oasis Trail at Joshua National Park. Joshua Tree National Park is an American national park in southwestern California, east of Los Angeles and San Bernardino, near Palm Springs, covering 790,636 acres. It is named after Joshua trees, Yucca brevifolia, native to the Mojave Desert. Initially declared a national monument in 1936, Joshua Tree was redesignated as a national park in 1994 when the U.S. Congress passed the California Desert Protection Act. According to the NPS, quote, the 49 Palms Oasis Trail offers a 3-mile round-trip hike to a fan palm oasis. It requires 2 to 3 hours and is rated moderately strenuous, ascending about 300 feet each way. This well-maintained trail climbs to a ridge where many barrel cacti dot the landscape. After winding around the ridgetop, the trail descends steeply to the oasis in a rocky canyon. Towering palms create a canopy over clear pools of water. Large boulders provide a place to rest and enjoy the sights and sounds of this small ecosystem. Greg Land from the NPS said, quote, it's not a real difficult trail. You go in and come out the same way. However, it is a little bit of a rigorous trail, and it generally takes most visitors around 1.5 hours to complete there and back. The disappearance of Paul Miller and the search begins. When Paul hadn't returned by 11 a.m., the motel checkout time, Stephanie grew increasingly concerned. It was very unlike Paul not to return on time, especially as they had a flight to catch. She contacted national park officials at Joshua at the nearest office at around 11:30 a.m. Ranger Ash was notified of Paul's situation at around 11:45 a.m. Given the high temperature in Joshua Tree at this time of year, 100 degrees Fahrenheit plus, or 38 degrees Celsius, park rangers took Stephanie's concerns seriously. Upon arriving at Joshua River, Ash began a search and found 2 vehicles parked, a tan Hyundai sedan registered to Hertz, Paul's vehicle, and a blue Audi sedan registered to a private citizen. He conducted an NPS search urgency assessment and concluded a measured response was required based on the information at the time. Rangers Mo and Ash immediately searched the 49 Palms Canyon Trail from the trailhead to its end at the 49 Palms Oasis. Upon arriving the oasis, they came across a white male adult hiking away from the oasis. He stated he drove a blue Audi sedan and had not seen any other people during his hike. Ash and Mo then searched the area around the oasis, but returned to the trailhead given the high temperatures. By 2 p.m., a full search and rescue operation had started. At 4 p.m., The washes leading off the 49 Palms Oasis Trail, the rocky areas inside canyons, began to be searched until 10 p.m. that first day. For 5 days, the search for Paul continued in the park, involving 600 people putting in 6,000 hours, 90 people at peak, up to 20 dog teams, an ATV search team, and a helicopter. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department deputies, detectives, search and rescue, and emergency services, California Rescue Dog Association, Nevada Search and Rescue, and the National Park Service with personnel from the Investigative Services Branch, Mojave National Preserve, Death Valley National Park, Santa Monica Mountains Regional Recreation Area, and Joshua Tree National Park all participated in the search. Due to steep ravines and cliffs, technical specialists with high-angle rescue skills were also deployed. But no sign of Paul was located, and no other evidence other than his car that he was in the park, such as his camera turned up. Park Superintendent David Smith said, quote, "We have a witness who saw Miller at the trailhead that morning, but that's all." Another visitor from England at the park reported seeing Paul at around 9 a.m., walking quickly and with purpose. About halfway down the trail, he was resting by a rock that offered shade. The witness reported seeing one other vehicle, 2 women and 2 men in their late 20s, who went in after Paul down the trail, but authorities have been unable to locate it. There was no camera in the parking lot at the park of the time of the disappearance. Despite a large number of canine teams, the dogs were unable to pick up a scent. It can be hard to detect scent in high temperatures in the park at that time of year. One of the dogs even had the pads of its feet burnt because of the high heat. Infrared FLIR detection using helicopters was also impossible as the rocks were warmer than the human body. The search was scaled back after 5 days of intensive search on July 18th of 2018. The probability of Paul's survival in the extreme heat was low, and park authorities decided to scale back the official search. Park Superintendent Smith said in mid-August of 2018 there were no new clues as to what happened to Paul Miller, stating, quote, "I assured them the Park Services will not forget about Mr. Miller. We are doing all that we can. The FBI is called in only if there is a murder or homicide, and at this point, there is no indication that is the case. Nothing to indicate this was a planned disappearance." Stephanie said, "Maybe he finished the trail and came out and something happened. We really don't know. But if they can't find him in the park, then what's to say he's not out of the park?" Anyone hiking in such heat moving in an off-trail area strewn with boulders, rattlesnakes, and other dangers would not have survived long, even with plenty of water. The NPS considered several scenarios, and they believed he had hiked off-trail around 1 mile south of the trailhead in order to photograph bighorn sheep. He most likely fell whilst he was taking pictures on his camera and was injured and became immobile or unconscious. He then succumbed to the extreme heat. Alternatively, another scenario was one where Paul did not turn around at the oasis and instead continued south into a drainage and went further southwest before dying due to the heat. The lowest likelihood scenarios were foul play and self-harm, but without any sign of Paul's remains, it was all theories. The search continues. Additional searches took place in the months after Paul disappeared with limited park resources. On August 5th of 2018, a search began early in the morning with support and advice from Nevada State Search and Rescue ground searchers and canines beginning at the oasis and started working the trail back to the parking area. A nearby hill area was also searched because ravines and buzzards were seen circling the areas, but nothing was found at the time. The only thing of note was some canine interest about a quarter of a mile up the trail from the trailhead. All units completed searching by 9:30 a.m. on August 6th. 5 searchers and a dog were used to search the area a quarter of a mile from the trailhead, where the dogs had shown interest before, but no further clues were located. However, the canine continued to show interest in this particular area. Search efforts continued on August 12th, early in the morning, to follow up on the clues found during previous searches. Once again, despite skilled SAR personnel on the scene, nothing was found that helped the search for Paul. On September 9th, a small group of searchers decided to look into some shelters and caves there that were known to be in the region in case Paul had found one and decided to take cover. However, due to a lack of personnel, only 5 people were available, and nobody was able to complete their assigned search segments, and again, the efforts led to nothing. In September of 2018, the park closed the trail for a few days while a helicopter flew over using a new software system that takes high-resolution photos, homing in on any anomalies. In November of 2018, family members and friends, accompanied by some Joshua Tree search and rescue members, went back to the park unofficially. They could use GPX tracks of the areas the NPS had already searched. This allowed them to focus on new areas of interest. They also put up posters around the park and nearby towns and did their best to alert hikers to be on the lookout for any clues. On September 6th, someone contacted the National Park Service about an unknown ribcage found in the 49 Palms Oasis. When a ranger arrived, he was shown photos of a spinal column. The following day, rangers hiked out to the location of the discovery. Photographs were taken of the bones, which were then sent out to a coroner to be identified. It was later determined that they were not human. The Sierra Maid Search and Rescue went into the area to perform a search as a trainee exercise. Drone search for Paul Miller. Paul's sister, Dawn Robinson, encouraged the park to allow a drone search of the 49 Palms area. It was such rugged terrain to search thoroughly, and other places were inaccessible on foot. However, flying drones within a national park is illegal, and the Park Service does not generally grant special permission. After many setbacks, Dawn Robinson eventually located a team of SAR drone operators from a Utah-based nonprofit organization, Western States Aerial Search, who applied for a special use permit and were able to get their request granted in November 2019. The drone team planned to fly 3 or 4 drones for 3 days over the park, taking thousands of high-resolution pictures over a wide area. The drones eventually took 6,711 images, which the pilots uploaded to Dropbox, an online file storage service. Volunteers began scouring the photographs for signs of Paul Miller. According to Greg Knuckles, founder of Western States Aerial Search, Sarah Frances Kelly and Morgan Clements found evidence of human remains in the photos. The aerial picture appeared to show a light-colored object which appeared to be a human femur bone. Rangers were notified on December 19th of 2018 and provided with GPS coordinates of the Rocky Steep location. Remains located. Law enforcement rangers hiked to the spot the next day and found human skeletal remains and personal belongings. The remains were tucked into steep terrain but within 60 feet of where searchers had previously looked. They entered the area near the 49 Palms Oasis on December 20th at around 2 p.m., starting at the 49 Palms trailhead, and made their way towards the GPS coordinates provided by the drone operator. They later decided to hike down a drainage from the ridgeline on the trail and go downhill towards their target. This drainage reportedly went into a southeasterly direction. At around 3:30 p.m. in the drainage, they located a pair of dark-colored cargo shorts under several large rocks and partially buried in the sand. The shorts were covered in dirt and torn in several places. They were a size 32, and the maker tag indicated they were manufactured in Canada. Nothing was found in the pockets. The rangers put the shorts in an evidence bag, and then further down the drainage at around 3:45 p.m., one of the rangers located a boot under several large rocks. The boot was very worn and appeared to be a tan-colored military-style size 9, and there were no identifiable marks on it. They then put the boot in an evidence bag as the team approached the lower section of the drainage near the coordinates they were given, and observed what looked to be a partial human spine laying in the sand at around 4 p.m. Dwayne said that Paul was found hidden in the back of a crevice partway down the main wash leading from the oasis and toward 29 Palms. There is a very clear drainage or wash heading from the 49 Palm Oasis and north-northeast toward the town. Paul was still close to the end of the trail. 2 branches led into the wash, and based on the NPS report, the rangers started finding the clothes and boots along this drainage as it headed southeasterly. This then connected with the main, where they found the remaining remains. The bones that were initially discovered, which indicated a spine and femur, were photographed by the recovery team, and at around 4:10 p.m., they found a human skull lying on the open ground with the mandible missing. A purple and gray Osprey backpack was found 10 feet from the skull in an upright position, and it contained a Hyundai rental car keys, the Nikon camera, a roll of toilet paper, and about a half-liter to 1 liter of water and a Camelback-style water bladder. Rangers inventoried the backpack, and then they continued searching the area and found several other bones that appeared to be human. After reporting it to the chief ranger and contacting San Bernardino County, the team left the area at around 4:30 p.m. The case was then transferred to the San Bernardino County Sheriff, who returned to the scene on December 21st with a coroner. According to Dwayne, the photographs of the camera helped piece together some of Paul's last moments. She said that the photos showed that Paul made it to the oasis and that he was returning to the parking lot when something happened. Paul decided to go off trail. Maybe he saw a bighorn sheep. She said that when she went to the oasis herself, she noticed hikers sometimes accidentally following an animal trail down the main wash, but she said that most of the time, these people turned back to the main trail. Remains confirmed as Paul Miller. In mid-January 2020, official identification of the remains found at the end of 2019 was made and confirmed to be that of Paul Miller. What killed Paul Miller in Joshua Tree National Park? It appeared that Paul Miller had sought shelter from the sun in the only shady area he could find, a rocky crevice. Whatever happened to Paul appears to have happened quickly, as there was still quite a bit of water in his camelback, and hence, it is believed he may have had some kind of medical emergency, like a heart attack, and then died from the heat within the first few hours. Whatever caused Paul to go off trail will never be known. Potential reasons include suffering from confusion and disorientation from the heat. A medical emergency like a heart attack or stroke caused him to seek shelter. He was relieving himself, stumbled, and fell, hitting his head against a rock. He met someone on the trail that caused him to run for safety. The coroner confirmed that there was no evidence that Paul had succumbed to foul play, but the state of the remains made it impossible to determine a cause of death. Stephanie Miller said that it appeared he had made the hike to 49 Palms Oasis and was coming back out the wrong way. Early in the search, teams had gotten close enough to where the remains were found that he would have heard and responded when they called out his name, she said, adding there is comfort knowing he didn't suffer long. Quote, I hated to think he was suffering and we could not find him. The disappearance and death of Janet Castellon in the Chiricahua Mountains. Lydia Janet Castellon disappeared June 19, 2015, Rustler Park, Chiricahua Mountains, South Arizona. Skeletal remains found August 5, 2018, confirmed September 2019. On June 19, 2015, Janet Castellon, 44, vanished from a camping trip in the Chiricahua Mountains in southern Arizona with her parents, Dr. Eduardo and Lydia Castellon, all of Las Cruces. Janet, the oldest of 4 siblings, suffered a traumatic brain injury in a car accident in 1988 when she was 18 years of age, causing memory problems and partial blindness. At the time of the crash, she had just completed her first semester at New Mexico State University, where she studied computer science. She remained in a coma for 3 months. During the trip, Janet vanished and was never seen alive again. 3 years' remains were finally found, which were found to be Janet's. What happened? Lost and died from exposure, snatched by an animal or person. The trip to Rustler Park. Janet was last seen outside a campground bathroom in Rustler Park. It is a wildflower carpeted meadow high in the Chiricahua Mountains, rimmed with Douglas fir and ponderosa pine. Campsites at Rustler Park are scattered along access roads that have been purposefully kept out of the meadow to avoid damaging the fragile plants and soils. Larger animals, including black bears, are frequently spotted there, and trails lead from the campground to Chiricahua Wilderness and other places of interest. As planned, Janet and her parents left for the park from their Las Cruces home on Thursday, June 18, 2015. By that evening, the 3 had arrived in Deming, where they stopped at a church and stayed overnight in their motorhome. The following day, June 19th, they departed from Arizona after eating breakfast at an IHOP. The family arrived at the Rustler Park campground between 1:30 and 2 p.m. When they finished setting up their camp, Eduardo made lunch for his family of quesadillas, beans, and rice at around 4 p.m. Janet Castellon's disappearance. About an hour later, after their meal, Lydia, who speaks mostly Spanish, said she wanted to go for a walk and asked Janet to join her. She initially declined, but Eduardo told her to go to the pay station and make the payment, and Janet agreed. She and her mother then walked about 1,000 feet from their motorhome down a curved path to the pay station, where Janet deposited the payment envelope. About 300 feet from the pay station, Lydia decided to go to the bathroom, and Janet waited outside. When her mother came out of the bathroom, she was nowhere to be seen. She thought that Janet must have decided to head back to her Eduardo. Lydia estimated that she was in the bathroom only a few minutes, and soon became worried when she returned to the motorhome and discovered Janet was not there. Eduardo said, quote, "My wife ran up to our camper spot to see if she had made it back up here, but I was here and never saw her. She never got back. We immediately started searching for her, asking other campers. On our way over there, she just disappeared." Janet was 5 foot 3 inches tall and weighed 250 pounds. She was last seen wearing a white t-shirt with black lettering, blue jeans, and white tennis shoes with a red stripe on them. The search. No footprints were leading off the main path, the family said. There were no signs of a struggle to suggest that Janet had been attacked or had attempted to fight off an attacker, and there were no screams or cries for help. By 8 p.m., Janet's brother Oscar arrived and called 911 to report his sister missing. But help, he said, did not arrive until after midnight Saturday, June 20th. A search and rescue mission with Cochise County Sheriff's Office began searching for Janet at around 12:30 a.m., and the team searched until 6 a.m. and resumed at around 9 a.m. A search helicopter was dispatched later that day, but was unsuccessful in finding any signs of Janet. The search continued well into Sunday and over the next few days, but there was no sign of Janet or evidence of clothing or blood, which may have indicated a bear attack. Search and rescue teams on foot and with sniffer dogs thoroughly searched the area around Ruster Park Campground, but Janet was never seen again. What exactly happened to Janet? The family were convinced Janet was abducted. Fabian Castellon, Janet's other brother, said, quote, "There wasn't enough effort to begin with," referring to the search efforts by the Cochise County Sheriff's Office. Soon after Janet disappeared, Fabian said a search team from New Mexico offered to assist the Cochise County authorities, but was rejected. Fabian took on a lead role in the search efforts, often finding tips and leads for the detectives assigned to the case. He spent about 3 weeks searching for Janet immediately after her disappearance and helped organize extensive search parties. He and his sister, Sohil Castellon, regularly searched the area until the park closed for the season in late October. Oscar, meanwhile, believes the search was hindered mainly because authorities did not take into consideration Janet's disabilities. Quote, "They assumed too quickly that she was competent," he said. "They told us that she either left with someone or ran away. We told them specifically she's disabled. She isn't capable of many, many things, and I don't think they took that into consideration. She was completely dependent on our parents," her brother said. Detectives did not have any particular theory for Janet's disappearance. There's no way she could have strayed too far. That campground is landlocked. The only way to get out of that campground is the same way you came in, Fabian said, adding, "There's no real cliff you could fall off or river to drown in. We believe that somebody took her out or that she got into a car." Another strange disappearance in the Chiricahua Mountains area involved a law enforcement ranger, Paul Fugate, who vanished on Sunday, January 13th of 1980. Paul, 41, left the visitor center to check the natural trail in the Chiricahua National Monument in Arizona and was never seen again. Discovery of remains. Bone fragments and a braid of hair were discovered on August 5, 2018, by a hiker called Amanda Moores and identified by the Cochise County Sheriff's Office as belonging to Janet Castellon in September of 2019. Results from the Tucson Medical Examiner's Office confirmed a match with Janet's DNA. No evidence of foul play was found. The remains were found only about a mile from where Janet was last seen in the campground. The strange disappearance and death of Stephen Michael Morris near Billy's Peak. Stephen Michael Morris disappeared August 2, 2014. Remains found December 2015 near Billy's Peak, Stoddard Lake area, Shasta Trinity National Forest. On August 2, 2014, Steve Morris, 59, went camping with friends from the First Presbyterian Church of Santa Rosa around Stoddard Lake and Billy's Peak in California's Shasta Trinity National Forest. He became separated from the other hikers and was never seen alive again. His remains were finally found several months later after a massive private search by friends and family and volunteers. The story is another lesson to be careful about group hikes. There are many cases of hikers being left behind, taking a shortcut or walking ahead and vanishing. Where are Stoddard Lake and Billy's Peak in Shasta Trinity National Forest? Stoddard Lake is the 6th largest lake in the Trinity Alps wilderness, which covers more than 2 million acres and includes Mount Shasta. The Stoddard Lake Trail almost immediately enters the wilderness, and the lake is named after a family that ranched in the area many, many years ago. The old Stoddard cabin is along the trail, but the cabin is long gone. Upper Stoddard Lake receives relatively few visitors, though it is said that it is the most beautiful of the 3 lakes in Stoddard Basin, with stunning cliffs above and views of Mount Shasta to the east. The least known, but most spectacular of the lakes on Billy's Peak is the tiny Holland Lake, a deep sapphire pool situated 600 feet below the summit. The rugged granite cliffs descend from the summit into the lake, and the great views to the east make this one of the most striking locales in Trinity Alps. In addition to Holland Lake, the north side of Billy's Peak is home to several small tarns nestled into small dells below the summit. Perhaps the main reason Billy's Peak has gone under the radar is the confusion over which peak the Billy's Peak Trail ascends. Adjacent and connected to the main bulk of Billy's Peak is a tall granite spire with 1,015 feet of prominence, often referred to as Billy's Peak Lookout due to the past presence of a fire lookout tower. It is officially unnamed and is an impressive granite summit when viewed from the Trinity River. This prominent peak towers directly above the Trinity River Canyon and Highway 3, giving rise to the misconception that it is Billy's Peak. There is no trail up the true Billy's Peak. Billy's Peak only reveals small turrets of exposed rock when viewed from below, and neither the true summit nor the true nature of the mountain is visible from any road. The southern side of the peak is drier, brush-covered, and often uninteresting, and the north side is rock and ice-covered. In addition to claiming the large Stoddard Meadow at its foot, Billy's Peak has 4 lakes on its north side, including Stoddard Lake. Who was Steve Morris? Steve Morris and his wife, Carrie, ran a family therapy practice in Santa Rosa. He was trained and licensed as a professional marriage and family therapist. He was an experienced hiker and loved spending time in the great outdoors. The disappearance hiking to Billy's Peak. Steve and the First Presbyterian hiking group decided to hike that day to Billy's Peak and back to camp. Morris was hiking ahead of the others and, for reasons unexplained, never returned to camp with his fellow hikers. He had some water and energy bars with him, but no overnight kit. The group retraced the trail in search of Morris, but couldn't find him anywhere in the area. 2 of the campers hiked to where they could get cell phone reception and were able to call for help at about 10:14 p.m. The area where the group was camping is about 6,000 feet above sea level, and night temperatures dropped to around 20 degrees at that time of year. Trinity County, Marion, and Contra Costa Counties Search and Rescue, SAR, teams began searching for Morris on the morning of Sunday, August 3, 2014, but were unable to locate any signs of him. Efforts were hampered by the difficult steep terrain, decomposed slippery granite, and a nearby wildfire. Over the next few days, CHP helicopters, Marines Elite Bay Area Mountain Rescue Units, human remains detection dog teams, and over 100 certified search and rescue volunteers were involved. Black Hawk helicopters ferried searchers up to the slopes around Billy's Peak. Trackers determined they were following the trail of a lone person. The walker's gait indicated an injury to his upper left torso. It would take them an hour or 2 to cover 25 feet. However, on August 7th and 8th, after 4.5 days, the Trinity Sheriff's Department suspended official search operations. Friends and family preserved, and a large number of volunteers and family members continued the unofficial search for Morris. Over $42,000 was raised by 341 supporters via GoFundMe to fund the search. From that point, the team conducted 21 expeditions over 10 months. They painstakingly tracked Steve's route more than 2 miles down the mountainside. Volunteers encountered 2 bears and 5 rattlesnakes. On August 10, 2014, Jim Higgins, a private citizen and helicopter pilot from Chico, California, contacted the Morris family to offer help. When asked what he would charge, he said, "I don't want any money. Just pay it forward someday." What followed was an extended private search endeavor involving ground searching and search support by over 60 family and community volunteers. most from First Presbyterian Church of Santa Rosa. Analysts of over 5,000 photos of the search zone by 135 volunteers with assists, aerial and satellite image search team, 3 certified trackers through Joel Harden Professional Tracking Services, and Stevens certified human remains detection dog teams. Using a low-flying helicopter, Jim Higgins was able to locate a slide area descending from the 7,500-foot peak where Steve was last seen. He spotted a slide of loosened rock that he felt marked Morris's fall, ending at a spot where searchers said they found footprints that matched the size 9 Keen boots he was wearing. The search team concluded that Morris had fallen 30 to 40 feet from a granite cliff on the mountain, then tumbled an additional 15 feet, displacing rocks and leaving impressions in the dirt. But there were still no signs of remains. The volunteer search continues sporadically over the winter, hoping to find bones that would yield DNA. Animals would tear apart a human body in a matter of days, and the bones would be scattered. Joe Peterson, a professional tracker from Siskiyou County with 22 years of experience, joined the search about 50 days after Morris disappeared and traced his progress for more than a mile. His downhill path zigzagged as he tried to make his way past boulders and around manzanita thickets up to 12 feet tall, with plenty of bear tunnels. The tracks had been eroded by wind and rain, but Joe said she looked for footprints, crushed vegetation, and broken twigs. Trackers refer to these indicators as sign. Remains found. Near the end of 2014, remains were finally located in the ravine and were subsequently confirmed as human by using the cadaver dog Buster, DOTSI, and microscopic analysis of Bode Technologies. Steve Morris had made his way more than 2 miles to the spot, about 1/4 mile from a logging road where he would have been easily found. Dr. Arpad Vass, a forensic anthropologist at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory for 20 years and formerly of the University of Tennessee, agreed to test the remains with a mass spectrometer, which determined they were decomposing human tissue. Carrie Morris, Steve's wife, received Vass's email in May of 2015 and decided to call off the search at this point. The Sonoma County Superior Court examined the evidence and issued a death certificate at that point. No one knows how long he had survived, nor if that was his final resting point. What happened to Steve Morris? What happened to Steve Morris that day when he became separated from his hiking partners? Why did he split from the other hikers? Was he caught in an unexpected slide, as suggested by the location where his remains were found? Kudos to the searchers for preserving and locating his remains. The strange disappearance of Rosemary Kunst from the Marble Mountains wilderness. Rosemary Teresa Kunst disappeared August 18, 2000, Spirit Lake Marble Mountains Wilderness, Klamath National Forest, California. On Friday, August 18, 2000, Rosemary Teresa Kunst, 70, traveled to the Marble Mountains Wilderness to spend time with a Native American spiritualist organization and recover from a personal tragedy. During the trip, Rosemary vanished without a trace. After an extensive search and rescue effort, Rosemary's family launched their own unofficial search, along with a professional hiking guide, in order to look for her, but came up with nothing. They felt certain that if Rosemary wasn't injured, she would know exactly what to do to get herself found, with her family describing her as physically fit as can be. The area Rosemary disappeared in was heavily wooded and covered with thick foliage with steep valleys, and the only clue found was 4 strands of hair on a bush. To this day, the disappearance baffles searchers, as the direction Rosemary had walked was virtually impossible off-trail, and the only other exit was back through her camp, where she would have been seen. The head of the search operation said, quote, To go out for a short walk and to just disappear without any trace is difficult to comprehend. Usually, there will be some kind of a trace. I'm not sure what happened here. After the strange disappearance, Vicky Kunst, Rosemary's daughter-in-law, said, "It just seems like she disappeared into thin air. They're not finding any signs. Nothing. It seems just unreal." One of the most mysterious disappearances in the American wilderness and a classic story. Who was Rosemary Kunst? Rosemary T. Kunst of San Anselmo was born November 1st, 1929 to Ernest and Thelma Beam of San Francisco. As of 2021, she was survived by her siblings, Erna Banks, Joseph Bem, Elizabeth Bieber, Madeline Denham, Marie Dressler, and Cecil McCann. Rosemary married Charles Bud Kunst on September 9, 1950 at St. Anselm Catholic Church in San Anselmo, and the couple had children, Pauline McIntosh, John Kunst, Claire Saracola, Chris Kunst, and Ronald, who died before Rosemary in 1981. In early 1999, they both were involved in a serious car accident in which Bud was killed and Rosemary was seriously injured. She was a practicing marriage and family counselor. Her deep connection with the spirit was recognized and appreciated by all and expressed through her poetry, flower arrangements, massage therapy, organic gardens, and creative rituals. The Spirit Lake Visit. As a keen outdoors lover, she decided to go on a backpacking trip with the Earth Circle Association to recuperate from the tragic incident. Earth Circle was an organization in nearby Quartz Valley that taught Native American spiritualism and environmental practices. It was led by Native American Kurok Chief and Elder Charlie Redheart Thom. Earth Circle would use the remote Spirit Lake area of the Marble Mountains Wilderness, part of the Klamath National Forest and west of Mount Shasta. The lake is only accessible from one direction, with steep banks around it and tree cover, making entry and exit difficult apart from the trail at the lake's northern end. Each year, Red Hawk carried out spiritual ceremonies at Spirit Lake, which included spirit dances to help bring the Native American ancestors down to earth. On August 17, 2000, the group of about 20 people, led by Charlie Redhawk, headed out with Rosemary and hiked 12 miles to the small oval-shaped mountain lake in an area known as Woolly Creek. It is surrounded by some of Northern California's most rugged terrain. The trek was supposed to be a spiritual awakening for Rosemary after the trauma she suffered in the car crash. The group included a cook and used horses to bring in tents, food, and other equipment. When they arrived at the lake, Earth Circle and Rosemary participated in the attempt to contact the ancient spirits, a sort of outdoor seance. Rosemary's disappearance. On Friday, April 18th, the day the group was scheduled to return, Red Hawk told everyone at the camp of his plans to go for a day hike and they would return later that evening. Rosemary declined this invitation for reasons unknown and decided to stay behind. At around 1 p.m., Rosemary asked Red Hawk's 12-year-old son, Chalet, whether he would accompany her on a small hike to the other side of the lake. Chalet declined and stayed behind with the cook. She said she wanted to try to mingle with the spirit of her deceased husband. The cook made her a sandwich and gave her some trail mix before she grabbed her journal and headed out towards the Woolly Creek, the southern part of Spirit Lake. Apart from climbing the steep hillsides up to a 70-degree angle, there was no obvious exit from the area surrounding the lake. The search. At 5 p.m. that day, the rest of the group came back from their hike, and Red Hawk inquired where Rosemary was. She was not in the camp. Some of the group were dispatched to the Woolly Creek outlet and told to locate her. But around 1 hour later, they came back and said they had no success in finding her. At the time of her disappearance, she was wearing a blue fleece shirt, hiking boots, and a blue baseball cap. The Siskiyou Sheriff's Department and County Rescue Team were notified that Rosemary had vanished, and over 50 searchers began a search and rescue operation. Later, more than 150 people, including volunteers, National Guard troops, and law enforcement rescue teams, joined the search to comb the area around Spirit Lake. In addition, a FLIR-equipped helicopter, sniffer dogs, horseback searchers, and California Highway Patrol helped. Grizz Adams, incident commander for the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department, was mystified as getting from the south part of the lake was virtually impossible off-trail without climbing equipment, and especially for a 70-year-old lady. The only other exit was through camp, past the cook and Red Hawk's son. The sniffer dogs never picked up any scent, and Rosemary's lunch bag wasn't located. The only clue found was 4 strands of hair on Tuesday, August 22, 2000, in thick brush far from any trails. Adams said investigators haven't been able to use the hairs to develop any theories as to what happened from the area where it was believed she was walking. Unfortunately, this piece of hair was never DNA tested. What happened to Rosemary Kunst? In an interview with Red Hawk by Dave Paulides, the Native American elder believed that Rosemary had reached Devil's Back Canyon. He didn't have any direct evidence for this, but seemed sure. No clothing, body, bones, tracks, or blood were ever found, which would dismiss an attack by a bear or wildcat. Grizz Adams said mountain lions and black bears were common in the area, but attacks were almost unheard of. He said it was more likely that she fell and was knocked unconscious, but some evidence of such an occurrence would be expected, but nothing turned up. The search and cadaver dogs had not picked up any scent despite the enclosed location and lack of wind and rain at the time of the disappearance. Adams said, "She's not close and she's not in the obvious spots, but it's extremely tough country. The brush and timber are thick, and it's as steep as a cow's face up here." Some have postulated that Rosemary committed suicide after depression caused by the death of her husband, Bud. But if so, why did she ask Red Hawk's son to join her on the walk? Why were no remains ever found in such an enclosed area with steep slopes? Relatives and friends said Kunst was not despondent or suicidal and would not want to leave her family in a lurch, especially after the death of her husband. Grizz Adams said law enforcement officials have no reason to believe Kunst was the victim of a crime, nor did they believe she took her own life. He said, "There's just no evidence of anything. There's nothing to go on." Furthermore, Adams said, "To go out for a short walk and to just disappear without any trace is difficult to comprehend. Usually there will be some kind of a trace. I'm not sure what happened here." Rosemary's 3 sons were involved in the search and reluctantly agreed with the decision to end the effort. Vicky Kunst, Rosemary's daughter-in-law, said at the time, quote, "I think we're resolved to thinking she probably hasn't made it. It's awful. You still want to have hope, but you have to face reality. It will take a miracle to see her again. It just seems like she disappeared into thin air. They're not finding any signs. Nothing. It just seems unreal." And that, dear listeners, brings a close to these 4 true strange national park disappearances. I'd like to take a moment and thank the rest of the membership and new people to the channel. Thank you for your continued support, for without you, I would not have a voice, and Back to Ashes would not remain a channel. If you are sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you comfortably. If you're awake, I hope you've enjoyed this collection. Until next time, please take care of yourselves. I'll be reading to you soon. Have yourselves a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Peace, love, and light to you all.